Diddy's trial is currently underway. As you've heard about jury selection, you've heard about them impaneling the jury, pretty much as we speak, as what's going on. Also, the opening statement should also commence, um, if not today, sometime very, very soon. But basically, the trial's underway. And a lot of people have sent me information, sent me questions regarding this trial, asking basically the one common question: how is Diddy being charged by a RICO by himself? I think there's a way I can just clarify this really, really quickly to bring a better understanding to what's going on. As you know, Diddy's being charged. Let's look at his charges here. Diddy's being charged with a few charges. Count one, as you can see here from the grand jury, is a racketeering conspiracy charge. Now, let me explain. Conspiracy, I've dealt with racketeering in other videos. Also, I actually spoke about how he's being charged with this racketeering conspiracy charge on a podcast, and I'll leave the link in the podcast in the description below, so you guys go check that out. It was a podcast interview I did like about a couple of months ago, and I spoke about this pretty much ad nauseum. I broke this down, but so I'll leave the link in the description below. But nonetheless, let me just say here that this racketeering conspiracy charge that we see here, that's different from racketeering itself. So racketeering conspiracy, a conspiracy basically is its own crime, it's its own violation. It does not merge with the actual offense itself. So when you have somebody say conspiracy to commit burglary, conspiracy to commit whatever, right? That's different from the actual underlying felony itself. It's different from burglary, it's different from robbery. When you have a conspiracy, it's basically when you have two or more people who agree to commit a crime and to achieve some unlawful purpose. So you need two or more people to have a conspiracy, right? Basically, it's the agreement, and then you have some sort of unlawful purpose, and you have an intent to commit this unlawful purpose, and then you have some overt action to move said agreement in motion. That's what a conspiracy is. And if you put conspiracy racketeering, the government here, the feds are alleging that Diddy had an intent to achieve some unlawful purpose with two or more people. So it's a fair question then, if that's the case, how is Diddy being charged with this RICO conspiracy all by himself since there are two or more people? Well, the answer is simple. As you look at this article here, somebody asked the same questions. I see a lot of people also asking this question. It said, why is Sean Diddy Combs the only one on trial? And let me just tell you, man, they interview a lot of legal experts about this, but like I said, I talked about this on the podcast a few months ago. And basically, I can tell you from my personal experience, and then I'll go into what the actual lawyer here said. But from my own personal experience, whenever you have a conspiracy where two more people who are engaged in some sort of agreement to commit some unlawful purpose, right? And they have an overt act, right? They're getting hit with a conspiracy charge. Whenever you have only one being charged, when there's two or more people, that's required by law to have this conspiracy, that means, in my experience, now it could be different from what you've heard, but from my experience in working on these cases, it's if one person's only being charged, that means the other members of the conspiracy has in some way, shape, or form have agreed to work with the prosecutors. They have agreed to work with the prosecutors for a variety of reasons, and possibly the biggest reason so they won't be charged with the conspiracy, or maybe they won't be prosecuted for another crime they committed, or maybe they even agreed to a lesser charge, whatever, man, but it's something that's benefiting them from not doing this. So, but if you look at here, right, let's just look at what this lawyer said here in this article that was put out a day ago by this particular company. And this lawyer here has said that, she was as you can see here, she's a professor now, a law professor, but she's a former federal prosecutor. And she says, during the investigation, my guess is that there are agreements that were made. And so for the people who are testifying, assuming that they are insiders, I would expect them to have some kind of deals. Sometimes those deals involve guilty or no contest pleas to lesser charges. Sometimes they allow people to avoid charges altogether, especially if someone was both a victim and a co-conspirator. Now, in sex trafficking cases, for example, it is not uncommon for women who have been forced into sex to later recruit them as victims. She's basically saying the same thing that I've said. That's going to be the consensus from most lawyers you speak to, that basically whenever you have one person being charged, that's because the other members of the alleged conspiracy have decided to work with the government and prosecute to testify against the one that's being charged. So here, in Diddy's case, the government's alleging that there was this criminal enterprise, as you saw on the grand jury indictment. There's a criminal enterprise, allegedly, and there were several members, but Diddy's the only one. And that's probably because the people who you're probably going to see testify in court in this trial, they're probably testifying against him, and they're working with the government for whatever reason, and we don't want to know what that is. Maybe it'll come out, but as of right now, it has not. So stay tuned. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on what you think, how this trial is going to play out. I mean, this is going to be big because this is one of the most noticeable trials. You're going to see this trial, the criminal procedure, under a microscope, as so much media is going to be there. However, because it's a federal criminal trial, you cannot broadcast this trial, so it will not be broadcast, but media will be present, and they will be putting out notes and making statements. So you tell me what you think. How do you think it's going to play out? Give me your best guess. But that's how he's being charged. I hear a lot of people walking around saying, how is he being charged with a one-man RICO? Well, that's why. Hope this helps. It's your brother, Attorney Geoff.